Welcome back, and this is session 8 of the epreaching course. In this session, we're going to take a look at creating audience participation and creating slides for your sermon. In order to get audience participation, you need to get them somehow involved in what you're saying. Not an easy task, because especially for older folk, and I shouldn't just say older, how about for people, could be young, could be old, in general, who have been attending church for a number of years, they have not gotten involved in the sermon. They basically have sat there and been somewhat lectured to for anywhere from 12 to 30 minutes. Most of our preachers don't try to get you involved. But if you can get the congregation you're preaching to involved in what you're talking about, to touch those emotions of theirs, to say things that will get them to look at you and go, okay, explain that perhaps, you can get them involved in that way. Another way to do it, but this is going to be a little difficult for you to do, if you know the people well, like if you're a CLM, maybe you're a local pastor looking at this class, as you get to know the people, you can start bringing them into the story or into the sermon or into the narrative, whatever you happen to be doing. And of course, you have to be careful, because as you get to meet people in a congregation, you get to know them, you get to learn parts of their lives that they may not want you to be talking about. Obviously, you don't. But once you know people, there might be ways to get them involved. One thing you can also work on, and again, some of this may not work until you've been in a church several times, you know some people. You can actually start asking them non-rhetorical questions. But be careful, because you never quite know what the answer is going to be. And if you open up the session a little, your sermon session a little too much, they might start asking questions that you're not in a position to answer, and it can throw you off from the outliner that you're working with. Now, of course, if you're working on transcripts or off transcripts, it's going to be a little tough to get that involvement in that way, because you're going down a transcript, and that's fine. Again, no problem using transcripts. So what I've just described may or may not work for you. There are a couple of things you can do in the sense of movement. If you can move, and again, this might be difficult if you're reading transcripts, but if you're moving from side to side, if you're going up and down aisles, be careful with aisles, I'll explain that in a second. As you're moving, their eyes are moving or their heads are turning. And as long as they're doing something physical like this, then they're paying attention. They're watching where you're moving. And then when you come out from behind the podium, now they see all of you, and you can make these more grandiose hand gestures. They'll see you walking, they'll see you moving. Never turn your back on the congregation. That's a very important presentation skill. You can turn, see if I can do that here, sideways so they see your profile. Never show them your back. Bad idea. The best professors I ever had in college, when they wrote on the board, would turn perpendicular to the board. When I was teaching at your college for those years back in the 80s, and I wrote on the whiteboards, they had grease boards back then, I would turn sideways, so you get a side profile, not a rear profile, if you will. Be careful about that. If you're reading transcripts, motion is going to be hands, and you know what? If you can do this once in a while and turn and up, down, some kind of movement. Now, not a nervous movement like a twitch like that. That's a bad idea. But if you don't move and their eyes are fixed on you, you have the chance of them falling asleep. Movements that are bad, I've seen people with reading glasses, they have them halfway down their nose, and then all of a sudden they have to push them up, and then they slide down their nose, and then they push them up. That's a distraction motion. You want to try to eliminate that idea. Now, another thing that is in motion, but while I'm thinking of it and I see it, if I get into the correct position here, notice my eyes have just disappeared. You're seeing the glare of the computer. And you notice a lot of times I'll tilt my head backwards depends on which camera I'm using. This is the webcam on the PC. And you'll see me do this every so often because I'm trying to get rid of, see that ugly glare? I'm trying to get rid of the glare. There it is. A recommendation to get around that is anti-reflective coating glasses. Why? Because people will not trust you, and this is not something they think about, it's just something that happens, if they can't see your eyes. So you want to make sure they can see your eyes. Anti-reflective coatings on glasses do that. Anti-reflective coatings, I always have trouble with them because they tend to break apart. That's another small issue. Even if you're getting reading glasses only, see, there's the glare again. Let me flip over to this camera. I don't know if you're going to see the glare here. Even if you're going to get reading glasses, it's not a bad idea to spend the extra $30-40, if that's what they think they cost, to get the anti-reflective coating put on them. Things to consider as you're putting together your sermon. And again, I'm talking about presentation skills because you don't want the people snoring at you. Alright, this concludes this session. And of course, there is a worksheet for you to work on. And we'll talk again in session number 8. Alright, back to conclude session 7. Realize there was one more slide in one more topic we needed to cover. Make this, call this addendum to session 7. And that is creating slides. Now the slide that I'm showing that you're seeing is a good way to compose slides. There are books on composition that you can get. Notice what I've done here is, and which is different than all the other slides you've seen. I wanted you to see a difference here. I'm using a black background. If you want to put a little blue, some little like that in mind. Black background. Keep them very, very simple because you want people to be able to see on the slide quickly. If you put, and I've done this over, put fancy colors, and you could buy these packages and something called juice drops, and there's a whole thing called, I've got tons of them too. The problem with words is people can't read them. The best, black on white, or white on black, I should say. As you can see in the slide, I also put a graphic in, and I do that now pretty exclusively on my slides. Black backgrounds. Put a picture in that fits. Hey, what you have to do is Google. I Googled creating slides, and look what I found. Notice that underneath the slide, I put the photo credit or a graphics credit. You do need to put down where these things are coming from because it's not yours. If you don't do that, it's plagiarism. And you know, we're professional people here. We need to do that one thing right. The way I compose slides is easier, I should say, on the eye. The graphic is on the left side. The graphic is on the right side. The graphic size is about the size of the text box. If you take a look, it's pretty darn close. Alright, now, fonts and font sizes. I'm going to give you the ones that appear to work the best. Of course, you have the right to do what you want with them. The titles I do Calibri, 40 point, you can go to 44, you can go to 4. Don't make them too large because they overwhelm the slide. 40 seems to be a very good number. And for the text box, the How to Make Great Slides, Arial, and I shoot for 32. Sometimes I have to go down to 28 if I have too much information. On the slides, you have to be careful about that. Don't need lots of words. Don't need full sentences. You want to cut it down so it's the smallest amount of words possible, but it still conveys the information. Remember, they're listening to you. They're not listening to and reading slides. The photo credit, which goes, or the graphics credit, which goes underneath the graphic, or the photo, Arial 14 I'm using. If it's a really long credit, I'll cut that way down to 11 if I have to. But Arial 14 seems to work. Okay, this is the addendum, and I know now we're done with session 7, so I'll see you in session 8.